You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we are talking about San Andreas, the American disaster film directed by Brad Peyton, released on May 29th, 2015. And we have a special guest this week. Teased it a little bit previously, a couple episodes ago, and finally it is here. Please welcome the one and only Ben back.
I'm special. Special. San Andreas.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to this one. I'm happy to be here, though. I'm happy to finally be a guest, not just a listener.
Yay!
Yes, well, we couldn't think of a better movie for you to be on here to discuss with us for your first visit than San Andreas, which is one of my personal favorites, and I know you love it too.
Love it. So much.
All right, so let's get a little deep dive on behind the scenes before we really kick off this discussion. The San Andreas was filmed in Brisbane, Australia, with some shots in Los Angeles and San Francisco, California. The script itself was rewritten 3 times at least. Carlton Cuse, who is known as being the showrunner for TV shows like Lost, Bates Motel, The Strain, Colony, and Lock and Key, was one of the writers. However, after he took his stab at it, Carrie and Chad Hayes of The Conjuring fame did the final rewrite. The budget for this movie was $110 million, but it grossed $474 million, making it the 14th highest grossing film of 2015. It is 114 minutes long, and Pake, it's time for you to give us the synopsis.
All right. I like these little quick synopses that don't give you a whole lot, but a little tease. Of course, most people have watched the movies when they get to it, but in case not, maybe I'll entice you one last time to go check it out.
It's no longer short, Pake. You just ruined it.
That was the intro to the synopses, which can be however long I want it to be.
Got it. Okay.
That one's 20 minutes, actually, to build it up. No. In the aftermath of a massive earthquake in California, a rescue chopper pilot makes a dangerous journey with his ex-wife across the state in order to rescue his daughter.
AKA Dwayne Johnson saves the world.
Yes.
Yes. Rock the Dwayne Johnson, right? He's officially transitioned over to where he's more Dwayne than The Rock, or The Rock the Dwayne. I don't know. No.
I actually don't even call him The Rock anymore.
No.
I call him DJ most of the time.
Yeah.
He's not The Rock to me anymore. He hasn't wrestled as The Rock in years.
Yeah.
So I think he's pretty officially retired. Although in that profession,
nobody ever
retired
retires.
means nothing. They always come back.
Jake the Snake Roberts is still doing stuff that nobody ever retires.
Undertaker just retired for the 15th time.
You never stay retired.
No, never say never.
As we get into this one, usually, again, we like to just kind of break things down as we go through different characters and elements of the movie. But however, when we have a special guest, to make things a little bit easier to flow through and make sure everybody's got lots of conversation time, we like to do a top 3, which is a lot of fun. And so that's what we're doing. Everybody's kind of brought together to their top 3. Could be characters, moments, plot points, ideas, whatever. And so, Ben, since you're our special guest, why don't we go ahead and start with you and your number 3?
All right. Well, I mean, with my number 3, I'm going to start appropriately with the opening of the movie.
All right.
It's a fun opening in that it's already misleading right from the start.
Yeah.
You have this blonde college-age girl driving down a road, and you see an oncoming car. She reaches in the bag, and you think, oh, here we go. She's going to get into an accident. Nope. Gets through perfectly fine, even though she was dumb enough to take her eyes off the wheel with an oncoming car already coming at her.
I know. It's like she looks at it, and she's like, now's the time to dig through my purse.
Yeah, now's the best time to take my eyes off the road.
Yes.
There's a car coming. And then, very next scene, we see her reaching down for her phone and like, oh, okay, now here we go. This is it. This is, it's the typical don't text and drive kind of message of the movie. Nope. Nothing happens. She gets perfectly past another oncoming car. This woman should not have a license at this point.
No.
Probably not.
But then it takes you into what is just, in my opinion, and I know Pake will flaw this because of the CGI that's part of it.
It's not good.
But because I will admit the car falling down the cliff was some pretty bad CGI. But it turns into this completely unrealistic, hopefully you unplugged your brain before this movie started, opening sequence of a car, this avalanche happening, I think due to, I don't think it was ever revealed whether or not it was due to a mini quake or it just happened to be an avalanche on this highway. But it knocks her off the road, she goes tumbling, and in comes DJ and his team, pulling off these miraculous maneuvers that no helicopter pilot would ever attempt.
No.
In real life, this girl is a goner.
So how it should have ended, that YouTube series, the version of that would just be like, all right, we're going to go down here and do this. Pilot going, no, we're not.
Yes.
The end. Yeah.
If this was real life, he would be a just horrible rescuer. Which will lead me into a further point later. But no, that opening scene is my number 3, just because I think it's a hell of a way to start off a movie that is just when you think it's a great, exciting opening, it's legitimately a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to what the rest of the movie is going to be.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. When I started taking my notes for all the effects and things, because that's what I love, did not put that on there because didn't want to consider it.
Compared to the rest of the movie, it doesn't even register.
Yeah, you forget about it pretty quick.
Yeah. Although I will have to say that somebody I am acquainted with is in that scene. So that's another reason why I like it. Colton Haynes is in that scene as one of the rescue.
It's Joby something.
Yeah, he's the one that gets his arm crushed.
O'Leary.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that was my number 3. Was that
which is good because that scene, as terrible as the CGI is and unbelievable most of it is, it does a really good job of setting up the character of Raymond Gaines and his team, even though we never see them again. So whatever, but him mainly as like, you really see then throughout the rest of the movie, like he's going to be this guy that's dedicated to a cause of helping somebody or saving somebody no matter what. And that is good.
And what better way to introduce him to when you see the back of his head the whole time, but when he turns to talk to the reporter, the sun just happens to be behind him just so perfectly that he's lit up in this hue, almost godlike.
Yeah. Can almost hear his like wrestling entrance music just hit as he turns. Dun, 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 dun.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, yeah. In no universe would the pilot of the chopper get up and go out and do anything. That's something that I read in breaking down some of the pieces.
Well, not only that, but like that maneuver of turning the chopper sideways to get into the cavern.
Yeah,
you ask any helicopter pilot and they're like, no, like, we would never do that.
That whole scene is not realistic. Like, it isn't at all.
Especially with civilians on the chopper with them at the time, with those reporters.
Yeah,
exactly. There's reporters on the chopper with them. And
recording everything.
And you're just going to do this completely reckless maneuver to rescue a girl who shouldn't be licensed. It's not real.
You know, maybe it's worth the gamble to get her off the road. Oh, that's dark. But no.
Oh, take her to a real dark place real fast.
Maybe we'll all be better for just ignoring it.
Just let the car fall. Everybody, DJ turns to everybody. Let's get our story straight, okay?
Yeah.
We tried.
We tried.
We knew that she could not be allowed to be back on the road, so this was the end result.
Yes, exactly. We'll send flowers to her parents. It'll be good. We'll be fine. We're covered.
Awesome. All right, Daphne, what about you? What is your number 3?
My number 3 is Dr. Lawrence Hayes and his team at the university.
Caltech.
Yes. So when we met him, he was running out to test some equipment with his friend Dr. Kim Park. I think, yeah, Dr.
Yes.
Kim Park. And they were checking their system to be able to anticipate earthquakes and tremors. And they thought they had this great opportunity southwest of, I believe it was southwest of Las Vegas. And so they went out, and we, of course, lost Dr. Park very quickly. And that's when shit really got real, when that dam started breaking apart, which is part of another number that I have on this list.
It's a good thing I have a backup for my top 3 because this is my number 2. So,
good. Then we can talk about it.
Yes.
We can talk about it.
Yeah.
I really liked the way that Paul Giamatti portrayed this character. I thought he was really believable when, he's watching his friend die, and then he goes back to the school, and he realizes that this is really serious and shit's about to go down, and he is trying to get the word out, but no one wants to listen. And then the reporter, Serena, comes and he talks to her just a little bit, and then more tremors, not even aftershocks. It's like the pre-shocks to the whole situation. And I just really liked his character a lot. One of my favorite things was when he went to the media lab and basically said, I'm starting a new class, and who wants to join?
Hacking TV media.
Yes. Loved it. And I just really liked his team too. The girl, and I'm blanking on her name, but her name on the movie was Phoebe. She was in a show called The Last Ship, which was filming about the same time. It's a pretty good show.
Marissa Nettling.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's great on The Last Ship, post-apocalyptic show that I really liked. And the guy that played Alexei, he should look familiar to people for playing Alexei in a different show.
Yes, he's good at being Alexei, I guess.
He's great at being Alexei, because I believe he was in season 3 of Stranger Things.
Yes.
It's great. I have in my notes about him like a little extra note. I said, so Alexei has mathematical equations tattooed all over his arms. Nerd.
Well, but at the same time, Will Yun Lee is very notably known for playing characters with the last name Park in multiple projects.
It seems like it's a go-to for a lot of Asian doctors and lawyers and
Yes, definitely. I liked too when I think it was either the first or the second batch of shocks were happening. Both Alexei and Phoebe grabbed the computers and dragged it with them under the table wherever they were, just so they could keep track of what was happening. And so I just really liked their part of the story. It wasn't as big, of course, as the main story, but I liked the story that they were telling. I liked how they were focusing on the people that were trying to predict when an earthquake is going to happen to be able to save lives. And I like, too, that Lawrence went the extra mile with it and said, he got the hackers involved to be able to hack into the TV station so that Serena could bring him on and talk about the situation so they could save lives.
Yeah.
And I really liked that a lot.
And I want to say, too, in addition to that, what I really dug about it, the two things I really like most, and I agree completely that Paul Giamatti is this is another great role that he plays. But what I liked is that when they introduce the science to the audience, they don't dumb it down so much that it's just complete gibberish, but they also don't overcomplicate it that you can't understand it at all, like some movies tend to do.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I really like about it too is later on in the movie, it's what makes me wish there's a part of this movie was actually real, is that the American public actually listened to the scientists.
Right.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't live in that world right now. But, that was something else I enjoyed about it, was that they actually listened to the scientists when they were giving them this warning, which is another kind of against type, where, you look at movies like The Core or other movies similar to that, where they don't believe the scientists when they tell them the world is about to come to an end. We need to do something now.
Or even Jaws.
Yeah, they don't.
I mean,
heed
really,
warnings.
It's become a running theme on this podcast.
It has.
We did Dante's Peak. We did Jaws. We did The Day After Tomorrow. Just came out recently.
Yeah.
It's like, we.
Yeah, it's a common thing.
I mean, granted, there were already earthquakes happening by the time Dr. Lawrence had already put out his warning. So they really should be listening at that point. If you're not listening at that point, there's something wrong. But still, the fact that they listened was a huge plus for me.
Yeah.
Well, and looking at the highway, the cars that were on the highway leaving town, I mean, scary to have that many cars on the road at the same time trying to get out, but at least they were trying.
It just looked like Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that story because it was very much a B story to the movie in every way, as far as like it had literally no implications on the main story and the main people were following because they were just doing what they're going to do. But yeah, from that scientific like outlook, even though apparently like a lot of the science is real iffy in this movie, but still, like, from that viewpoint of looking at it, like, it is a good B story for the fact that because they were able to broadcast and do everything, like, you get that little, like, bit at the end where it's like, oh, they saved so many lives, and we do thank them for that because a lot of people were able to get out in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, Peg, why don't you tell us what your number 3 was?
All right. Ben kind of hinted at it a little bit earlier, but I'm just going to get it out of the way. We're going to start. My number 3 is just kind of some of my complaints with the movie, but then don't worry.
I'll be back.
Don't worry because I have a lot more good stuff to say, but
awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because you know how I am about like a lot of that kind of stuff, especially the CGI, because in 2015 with this kind of budget and stuff, like, oh, you could have put so much more into that.
It should have been better.
Like even like helicopters like swooping and stuff, I feel like that's clearly like a computer program just pasted over scenery of mountains and stuff. Like you could have done way better. But like you said, if you turn your brain off and not like look at it at such a like critical eye, then it's totally fine. Like you're like, this is a fun rock peak Dwayne Johnson being Dwayne Johnson in a Dwayne Johnson action movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's everything you expect and want it to be in that case. And it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So if you a lot of suspension of disbelief for me, but that's okay. And then the dialogue was really cheesy in some places, but I mean, it is going to be that way in some of these movies. I think the worst offense of that one, and then I kind of let it go after that because I was like, why am I being so critical? I'm not in a bad mood or anything. I don't know why. I'm just let me enjoy things. But just the dialogue between Daniel and Blake in the like private jet on their way to San Francisco, I was like, what is this? Because like to paraphrase, I was like, I'm not going to try to replace your father, get in the way of you and him. Well, why didn't you have kids? I did. It's a big old building. Cool, huh? Sure is going to be real. It's like going to be an important plot point later on with how sturdy and big it is. So let me make sure to lay that out for you. Cool.
I want to kind of defend that conversation though.
Okay, go for it. I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love for you to.
There's a reason behind that conversation, whether the conversation, whether the dialogue was cheesy or not. Mm-hmm. It's another misconception of the movie that they want to lead you to believe one thing is happening when something else, because they go through that entire conversation to make you start thinking like, okay, this guy might actually be good for her, for Blake. Like he's actually trying to become like a decent stepfather in a way and be part of her life. So then when the moment comes later where they're trapped in the limousine, he says he's going to get help. And then there's that click when he turns to the security guard and says she's trapped in the car and he bolts.
Yeah.
That's where they wanted to flip the script on that. Mm-hmm. So that conversation in the plane was kind of a setup for that. If they didn't have that, it would be much more easily believable to real. It wouldn't come across as much of a shock that he was a dick to begin with.
I could see that, yeah.
You could have very easily just been like, yeah, okay, I saw that coming. He was going to run off on her.
So he was a dick the whole time. Yeah. I can see that for sure.
But that conversation set it up so that when he did that, you have more of an emotional reaction to him doing it. Mm-hmm. You were already ready for him to actually want to help her, and then all of a sudden, oh man, like he's a dick.
Well, his sister was a bit of a bitch. Let's just.
Oh, Kylie Minogue got everything she deserved. Let's be real.
Okay, so that was his sister?
Yes.
That was his sister.
Okay, because I wasn't ever sure. That's another one of these little things I was like, unless it's just something I missed, because like I was just like, okay, so she's like, I was thinking it was like his ex-wife, and then for some reason the like the ex-wife and the new girlfriend were meeting. I was like, this is weird. No. So it was his sister.
Mm-hmm.
That was his sister.
Okay,
yes.
That makes a little more sense because it's like, okay, but they both carry the terrible person genes, I guess.
Yes, they do.
They both get their comeuppance.
Yes, they do.
And then the last thing that I had just kind of it's nitpicks. It's what it is. own up to that, is because that's what I felt like doing. There's also like, oh, they're just going to loot a fire truck right in front of all the policemen and firemen that are standing there watching them do it, and they're not going to have a problem with that at all.
I will actually agree with you on that one, because I actually rewatched the movie right before we started recording, and when that scene came up, I'm like, what?
Oh, we need supplies, and everybody's just walking by, ignoring them, like not. You'd think other people would be like, oh, let me do that too. Or the policemen or firemen stand there, be like, yeah, that's fine. Just dig through our truck. Fine, take what you need.
I'm more shocked that that box was still there.
Yeah.
Not the fact that they're going through it and nobody's helping them. How is that box still there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, man.
But that's really all I had. I just had a couple of nitpicks that I was just like, it was enough of my notes. I was like, I got to bring it up, or I'm going to sprinkle it in and throw other places. But it was like, man, some of it was, but then, yeah, once you kind of turn your brain off and you're like, you know what, this is an action movie with The Rock and I'm going to love it for that, then it's totally fine.
It's a unplug your brain summer popcorn movie.
Yes.
Yes. And there is a place for them.
Absolutely.
Yes. My movie collection.
Cool. All right, Ben, what do you have as your number 2?
Oh, we're going to talk about more action sequences, because I want to talk about one of the most ridiculous action sequences in the film, but yet one of the most badass ones at the same time. Let's talk about the tsunami.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is one of the, I mean, you want to talk about suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
I can suspend my disbelief for a chopper going into a canyon. I can suspend my belief to just all this other stuff, to Carla Gugino being the sole survivor on the roof of a building, and The Rock just happened to be there.
Which I call that Deus Ex Rockin'.
Oh, I called him The Rock. Yes. Nice. Well done. But the fact that there is a tsunami coming and everybody knows they have to get over it before it crests. Everybody just happens
I was thinking, like,
to know that.
If I was on a boat, or anybody that I know who has boats were out there, none of us would think, oh, you got to go towards it and go over. It would be like, get the fuck out of here.
No, exactly.
Well, I mean, I can understand DJ knowing it and his character knowing it, because he is a rescue person. So there is a lot of survival instincts that he has. But my thing would be like him driving towards it while everybody else is driving away from it, because who else knows you have to get over it? My first instinct would be, I'm dead. It wouldn't even be to try and survive it. My first instinct would be, I'm just kissing my ass goodbye at this point. But I mean, that's one thing. But then what I love about this scene at the same time, like I'm entering in this scene, I'm watching it, and I'm trying to suspend my belief. And then just as I suspend my disbelief and I'm getting excited he's about to make it over, a big container ship comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, let's avoid this. And he avoids that situation. And just when I start to relax, what happens? The containers start to fall and nearly crush them that way too. I love the scene because it just keeps adding another and another and another immediately.
Well, the propeller tore the top of the boat off.
Yeah, which brings up a very interesting point. That roof gets knocked off the boat twice.
Yes, it does.
In the movie. Because it also gets knocked off when they're driving through the building
at the very end
of the movie. So, I mean, you want to talk about little nitpicks like that. There's also the fact that Dwayne turned off a truck with a key that he hotwired.
Yeah.
So that's
they just handed and then handed it over to these other people. Like, here, you go. I didn't have keys, but now I do.
I mean, when they pull over to that couple after almost driving off the cliff, you legit see him turn a key to turn the truck off. Mm-hmm. No, you hotwired that truck. Okay. Anyway,
he almost got shot in the head when he was hotwiring it.
No, I knew that wasn't going to happen.
No, but I'm just saying. They made a point of showing us that he was hotwiring the truck. And it was a serious situation with the guy with a gun to his head.
Well, even the gunman does it. They saw him twist the wires. That gunman is pointless to that scenario. You saw him twist the wires, hotwiring it. You know he hotwired it.
Yes.
And then you see him turn it off with a key later. Which, anyway. But what I like about that scene, other than all the excitement that just builds and then stacks and builds and stacks, is that scene ends with a serious gut punch. And that is just when you think the damage has been done to this city from the quakes, you see them at the crest of this wave looking back and seeing all of that water heading towards the city. And then you get these little glimpses of people stupidly thinking they can run away from it. But at the same time, you see this older couple just kind of realize our time's here. We're just going to embrace, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah.
So it takes you from the peak of excitement to the peak of depression in this film.
Yeah. I have to agree with that.
Yeah, I have in my notes, I said, the old couple just embracing as the wave
Me
comes.
too.
I said it was just heartbreaking. I said it's actually a very sobering scene of destruction, if I'm honest. Like, it takes that, like, action, to where, like, oh man, like, this is really sad.
Yeah.
Because you get that moment where you're like, all right, they survived. Oh, crap, everybody else is going to die.
Yep.
Yes.
And it really takes it down. I mean, it takes you from an extreme high to an extreme low.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whether or not this movie has top-notch CGI, emotionally, this movie hits peaks of high and low. It's full of it.
Oh yeah. In that same note, I was just like, I will give you points on this one, San Andreas. That was major. You did good there. Like,
So I had to bring up the tsunami as one of my top 3.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pake and I always talk about how New York is always the one that is always the city that gets blown up, torn apart, beaten down, whatever. And so in this instance, when I was watching this today, I'm thinking another movie where we're not seeing it be New York.
Well, but it's DJ. DJ very rarely does his action in New York. He's usually West Coast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yes. Most of his movies are usually West Coast or inside of a game.
Yeah. Okay. And so we have recently covered Rampage. I don't know if the episode will be out before or after this, but I think that was Chicago. So
it was. Yep.
But I believe it started on the West Coast.
Yeah, the Animal Reserve started on the West Coast in California. Yeah.
San Diego.
Yep. So he does most of his action originates on the West Coast.
Right.
That's a better way to put it.
Okay.
All right, cool. Daphne, what do you have for number 2?
My number 2, I want to talk a little bit about, well, one, I think that Carla Gugino is way underrated. She's done so many great films, like she's had great roles, and I feel like she's super underrated and doesn't get all the credit she deserves. I thought she really did a fantastic job in this movie, and Dwayne Johnson did as well. But I wanted to talk a little bit about their relationship, and we see at the beginning that they're like, he hasn't actually signed the divorce papers, so they're not divorced. But we learn through this that their family had a huge tragedy with their daughter Mallory drowning, and he couldn't save her. We don't learn really the extent of everything until they're getting ready to go on the plane, I believe, and they finally have this like heart-to-heart talk, and it all comes out, which I thought was one of the best moments of the film. Despite the fact that I love destruction, I thought that conversation was pretty amazing. I like that they got to the root of the matter, because I feel like based on that conversation, the two of them did not have a lot of communication after this happened, and it caused them to drift apart and separate. And he admits that he wasn't forthcoming with how he was feeling, or because he didn't really feel like he knew how to do it. But the one thing that he said that really struck me was, nothing was the way it used to be, and the way it used to be was perfect. So he didn't know really how to function in a world that had changed so much. And he definitely didn't know how to communicate with his wife. And he felt, really broken, I think. And then his wife, Emma, says, if he couldn't save her, no one could have. And then they start to move off from that and go into tandem jumping, and that would have terrified me. But, I just really wanted to point that out. I really liked that scene. I thought that it was, apart from the action, it was to me, one of the more heartfelt moments in the movie.
Reminds me of one of our very early episodes we did. It's Twister, with Bill and Joe being separated and then having to go through this traumatic experience and everything together to bring them back to realizing how important they are to each other. Of course, the stakes and past are a lot heavier and higher between Ray and Emma here. But but it makes me think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I do think that she realized, I think it all hit her when they were hiding by the side of the stadium while the earthquake was happening after they had landed in I think it was AT&T Stadium.
Yes.
Hey, who
AT&T
plays
Park.
in that park?
That's the San Francisco Giants.
Okay, yes. Good. 1 point for you. I knew you would know that.
I want to go there so bad.
It's not there anymore, Pake. We saw what happened in the movie. This was a documentary.
Oh, we saw this in the movie.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
it's gone.
Damn. This documentary, San Andreas, we just watched. Yeah.
Yes, it's gone. So, the other thing I liked is there was a look that she gave him after they survived being at the side of the stadium where I think it clicked for her that she still loved him. Like, at least that's what I took from it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's one of those relationships that you kind of want to see, in that, yes, there's that look at the end that she loves him, but the entire movie, she never lost trust in him.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Like,
no, she didn't.
There was never any ill will between the two of them. It was just a marriage for some reason that didn't work, mainly because of the death of their daughter. The trust was always still there. That was never lost.
Yeah. The second he tells her to get on the roof, she immediately is like, that's what I'm doing, because that's what he said to do. Yeah.
But she doesn't question it. Yeah.
No, she goes and does it. She tries to get other people to go up there with her. Didn't work.
I mean, she legitimately leaps off of a building towards a basket, knowing, like, with the trust that he's the one behind the wheel of that chopper.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, behind the stick of that chopper.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust there.
Yes.
You're right. There's a lot of trust there.
For sure.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So, Pake, what's your number 2?
All right. My number 2 was then the really good stuff I had to say about the movie, and mainly, and I'm like you a lot, Daphne, it's the destruction and the action sequences and stuff that I really loved.
It's pretty great.
Of course, I noticed the first one in here also has a complaint, but you know what? But that's just how I am.
Say it.
No, because we were talking about the Hoover Dam moment with Hayes and Park.
Yes.
And I was like, it's real lucky that the earthquake and everything just abides by these like barrier poles.
Yeah. That was convenient, I think.
It's real nice of that earthquake to stop at the barriers. But Dr. Park dies a hero, and it's a beautiful moment in its own, so I'll take it.
Yes.
But yeah, no, we get some really good suspense moments and action moments. My favorites being the limo or car, whatever, maybe just a regular car, I don't remember, but with Daniel and Blake in it, where you're seeing this like debris and stuff from the parking garage falling and crushing people in their cars, and they're trying to drive as fast as they can to get out of there. The floor crumbles underneath them, and they drop to the lower level to where then their driver gets smashed, and Blake's legs are pinned in the seat. And Daniel's sitting there like trying to help her at first. He's like, "Oh, I'll go get help," and then that's whenever he just becomes useless Daniel, and
Daniel the Dude.
Yes.
The many faces of Daniel. I call them Daniel the Creep. So.
But that was the first time in the movie that I was finally like, oh, okay, I'm actually on the edge of my seat with this one. Like, finally, this is like some really good suspense, and I'm super in. Like, awesome. And I love that. And then, as much crap as I want to give the CGI, I think the one moment that I actually thought visually worked super well is the first time you see the entire city wobbling and shaking like a waterbed as Ray is flying over in the chopper. And I was like, okay, no, that's actually really cool. The building's kind of crumbling and shaking with that and swaying. It
does look like that. I likened it to like a wave pool. Mm-hmm. It's just like this, but I think a waterbed works better.
Yeah, it's like you still have the surface, but it's all shaking, which was cool. And then the huge chunks of building falling on random people never gets like any better to watch. Like I was like, damn, that's just rough every time. Like
I love a good action movie that pulls no punches when it comes to innocent people dying.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that sounds really horrible from a point of view like about me.
But I get what you're coming from. I mean, like, I agree.
It makes a disaster movie more realistic. Like, look, innocent people are going to get hurt, they're going to die, and they're going to die gruesomely. Yeah. If you pull away from that in a movie, it's not, you're taking away even more realism. It doesn't get
the same effect. And this movie doesn't pull punches with that, because I even have on here, it's like they have to hit every single action trope in these kind of scenes, don't they? I said speeding cars, check. People getting crushed, check. People falling off of buildings, check. people catching on fire and flailing around. Check. Like,
I got another one for you too.
Oh,
that
I
noticed
do
is in this one.
too.
The fact that the survivors always happen to find some area where nobody else is in the middle of a disaster.
yeah.
It happened in this movie. In Independence Day, it's when they happen to go into that side building as everything else is blowing up.
Yeah.
Day After Tomorrow, they find an area where nobody. It's like, come on, they just happen to find these areas.
Always.
Mhm.
Things always happen to happen.
It's a super action movie trope,
Yes.
and I love it and hate it at the same time.
But even with this one, it's more of a hero trope. Is like every one of these scenes, one of the main characters that are your heroes will find somebody. They'll see somebody out the corner of their eye who's injured or some scared kid that needs help, and they'll go out of their way to go save them too.
That's what makes it.
Yeah, and exactly. It's a trope, but it's not like in a bad way. I'm like, yeah, it's a cool thing that they're touching on all of these tropes, but tropes are tropes for a reason because they're effective.
Exactly.
Did you guys notice that in the downtown, when the street broke apart, the subway car came right out into the street?
Yes, that's in my notes on here too. It's like that was a really cool scene because the ground like is shifting and breaking apart as these like the fault lines are shifting. So things are going up and higher than other ground levels, and so it raises up, and then the train just comes shooting out of the tunnel.
Yeah, I didn't notice it the first few dozen times I've watched it, but
few dozen times.
I did notice it this time.
Then, of course, another kind of a single trope that bounded all of them together is not only you got to fly planes, helicopters, cars, and then you got to put them in a boat too. Because what other vehicles can we get The Rock to drive in this movie?
But again, like when you look at his background, it's believable.
Yeah, because he is. Yeah, that's what he does.
He's a rescue person. Like it's believable. If he was just some like normal dad, like who was working in an office, yeah, I'd be a little like,
yeah,
how does he know how to do all this stuff? But I mean, with him, it's totally believable that he can do all that.
Yeah.
And it's how his daughter knew how to do some of the things that she was doing, like, let's go into the Radio Shack type store, and we need to find a landline and a push-button phone and all of these little things.
Yeah.
And getting in, stealing items from the fire truck.
Because I totally believe his character as a father would be like teaching his young daughters, like, and this is what you do for survival, and this is what you do for this.
At the same time, too, one of the other things I really liked about this movie, and I really picked up on it on this latest watch, is the fact that while we see a spotlight on Ray's skills and on Blake's skills, we actually get to see a little bit of Ben's skills too, because Ben does introduce himself as an engineer.
Yes.
That's the kind of job that he wants. And then when she's trapped in the town car, we get to see that in action.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We see that engineering skill that he has put into effect to rescue
using
her.
the jack to pump up the rubble, and then whenever it's still not high enough, he goes and pops all the tires. Yeah, I said, he's really showing off his engineering and architectural skills. He's definitely going to get that job if there was a job left at the end of this.
Yes. But he kind of got the girl, so maybe he'll weigh that out.
Yeah. But yeah, I like that they shine the spotlight on not just the main character, but pretty much everybody. Yeah. And it's the same thing with Emma, too. Yeah. Emma's bound to pick up on a lot of that same stuff, just like Blake does, because they were together for so long.
Yeah, she finally gets her badass moment, tearing that boat right there through the windows and saving everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even Ollie, he's the one that's got the little book, and he goes in there and digs through and says, okay, we can't go here. We have to go to Nob Hill. It's the next highest point.
I knew his little laser pointer was going to come in to help whenever. The first time when he picks it up in the Radio Shack, like the store, I was like, yep, that's coming into play.
I never even noticed that he picked it up in the Radio Shack.
Yeah, when they're like looking for the phone stuff, he picks up that little like green like laser pointer and he's like playing around with it. And then he just like pockets it. Like he's like, yep, this will be handy.
Never even picked up on that. Yeah. I thought that was something he just happened to have on him the whole time.
Nope, picked it up in the store.
Oh, all right. I just picked up on something new, and I like it.
It's a good thing about watching a movie a bunch of times that you do like, because you always learn new stuff anyway. You always find things new.
Yeah.
That's a good thing for movies, is to have a lot of little details like that you keep finding new stuff.
It's one of the reasons why I've seen Shawshank 2,500 times.
Podcasting really helps with it too. Like, you have to dig a little bit deeper sometimes. And I've found out things that I didn't know before because I'm looking at it a little bit differently.
And you learn a new appreciation for it too.
Yes.
Like not just from a fan, but like when you start to dig deeper into things, you gain a new appreciation for it. It's the same thing with television
Absolutely.
shows that we podcast about, and you just learn to analyze it ever so slightly more, not over analyzing it, to just gain a little bit more of an appreciation.
But you get under the surface. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think I pretty much wrapped up most of what I had to say. So, number 1, Ben, where are you at?
I'm going to expand a little bit on Daphne's when it comes to Ray.
All right.
But I want to focus a little bit more on the actual, not the relationship between him and Emma, but DJ's acting. One of the things I really, again, when it comes to that appreciation, when you kind of look into things a little bit deeper, we've seen Dwayne as the action star before. He's been the action star in the Fast and Furious movies. He's been the action star in Jumanji, in Rampage. Like he's been the action star. We know him as the action star. He took this to a different level though, because not only was he an action star, he was an action star. He was a father, which he's been a father before because he's a father in Fast and Furious. But this time he was a father in mourning.
Mm-hmm.
He took his acting. We got to see a different dynamic to his acting. Like you never see him cry in any other movie. I think this is the first one. We get that great scene, like you mentioned, Daphne, with him and Emma in the plane where they're talking about how he had trouble coping with their daughter's death, and that's why the marriage broke down, and he apologized. But then they take it further when Blake is lying in the boat and he's trying to revive her and he can't do it. Like he feels even more like a failure again. We see him cry. We see him in pain. This is a different side of his acting we have never seen before. It's odd coming from a movie like San Andreas to get this different side of him. But regardless, we get it in this movie. And it makes me regret even further saying that when he left WWE, I called him a Hollywood sellout. Because now, because I will absolutely say I've never been happier to be wrong.
Yeah.
Because he is legitimately one of my favorite actors in Hollywood right now.
He made that switch very well. Because there's a lot of wrestlers who have tried their hand at acting careers. I mean, Kane even did it. You know, Chris Jericho's done movies. Stone Cold, well, Condemned wasn't that bad. Condemned was fun for what it was.
I liked Condemned.
Yeah, I liked Condemned.
But like Dolph Ziggler has done his hand at acting and stuff.
Mike Mizanin has done it. There's a bunch of them that have done it, but I don't think there's a bigger success story than Dwayne.
That nobody has been able to reach that peak, and I don't know if any other like wrestlers will reach the peak that Dwayne Johnson has.
And it's hard to not cast him as the action hero. Mm-hmm. But I would like to see him do something a little bit more dramatic.
Well, he made a whole career being good out of doing stunts and action work. So you know that's what he can do.
Yeah.
But seeing him in this movie, I really do think he could do the dramatic stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just what kind of role do you find for him where the big hulking action star can be that dramatic at the same time? You know, it's tough to not typecast him as the action hero when I think from what we see in this movie, he's got the chops to do other stuff. Yeah. It's just a matter of somebody's got to let him do it.
Yeah, it's got to be the right role to kind of break through that ceiling, because I feel like it is a ceiling.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is.
I feel like he's known. And it happens to other actors who do a series of movies, like the kids that were in Harry Potter, or like the Hunger Games.
Yeah, but even those guys have broken away from that.
They have.
From that.
Daniel Radcliffe's done a really good job about that.
Yeah.
And I know like the others have done other...
Rupert Grint has done some fantastic stuff.
He's done some other great work, yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's
hard. Yeah, it is hard to break out of that role that everyone sees you in.
And granted, I love the fact that he's embraced that role. The role of the action star. I love the fact that he's embraced that. I would just like to see someone offer him something else. occasionally, just to see if he can do it. Because from, like I said, seeing that new dynamic of his acting in this movie, I think he can.
It's good.
Yeah.
And that was my number one.
All right, Daphne, what about you? Where's your number one land?
Well, my number one, Pake, you already started talking about it, and that is the destruction.
Nice.
Tsunamis, earthquakes, buildings, dams, everything falling apart. That is where my heart lives when it comes to some of these movies. And sometimes the story is secondary, although with this one, the reason why I think I've watched it so many times is because I do like the story. Even though not everyone loves the story, I think there are parts of it that are actually really good. And so I like that piece of it too. But I love that right from the beginning, after the whole helicopter and the car CGI business, when we start with the Hoover Dam, the cracks showing, like the little things, the cracks showing up, coming up the dam, and then the road breaking apart, and then you see a bridge across the way is falling apart. From that to, like Pake said, the rolling waterbed-like city that you see, just starting the shaking, the earth breaking apart, and we're seeing, this is the San Andreas fault. The boxes coming out of the ship. I mean, all of these things, to me, even if they were a little silly at times, really made for some suspense and some tension, and I liked that about it. I liked, also, there was that weird dust storm downtown, that it looked like a dust storm when our good friend, Daniel the jerk, pulls the man out to take his spot, hiding.
It was because a big building had collapsed, and so it was a lot of the dust and debris and force from that. Yeah.
Little things like that. I loved the tandem jumping into AT&T Park. I just thought that was cool. I liked just showing the harbor and the boats, and the water was going crazy and the tsunami, and I'm thinking my dad on his lobster boat would have gone in the other direction, would not have gone. He would have been trying to get away. I was out on his boat when the waves would get really messed up, like just really out of control. And yeah, no, you don't go into it.
Well, that's what I meant when I said that. Like, everybody just happened to know to drive towards the tsunami and not.
I mean, it makes perfect sense, but in like a moment like that, you're not going to think logically like that.
You're not. Well, think about we did Dante's Peak a while back, and talking about the car was crossing the river. And this car just tried to go behind them.
It's like, I can see that this huge truck with a snorkel and all these giant tires is struggling. Yes. So let me take my little Cadillac and I'm going to follow right behind them.
Yes, exactly. I think people, when they go through a situation like this, they're not thinking straight. And you don't know how you're going to think when you're in the situation.
Oh, I told you where I would be. My ass would be on dry land, kissing my ass.
You'd be with that old couple being like, I'm just going to go stay with you guys.
Oh,
can I cut in?
I love that we all picked or pointed out the old couple, because I also had that in my notes as well. Because that was just this little moment that you just, they have to give it to you when they do things like that. They just, it punches you in the gut. And you feel the heartwarming feeling for just a second, and then it's over for them. And so we pretty much kind of covered a lot of the different things. I did love, though, one other thing. When they were driving in, the older couple stopped them from basically driving into the fault. The way that the gas station was split up, and like you could see a little piece of it down here and another piece of it was up here and broken down. It was just I thought that was kind of neat how.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they thought a lot of that big chasm is cool. And then you see like the road, like if you would have put those pieces back together, the road wouldn't have lined up, and it's on that fault line. No. So it would have broke apart and then shifted and like pulled away.
Yeah.
So
I liked how they showed that shift. I like how they showed a piece was way back here, way down here, and then up here, and then broken off piece up here, and I thought it was really cool how they did that. And of course the Hollywood sign fell again.
Yeah, if you can't destroy the Statue of Liberty, you might as well take out the Hollywood sign. It's going to be one or the other.
Exactly. Exactly. So that was my number one. I loved all the destruction. I thought that it was really well done. Other than that opening CGI, I thought the rest of it was from an effects standpoint, was pretty spot on and awesome.
Before you get into the production notes and such, I have one or two other things I just want to make a quick mention of, if that's okay.
Sure.
And here's one of the things I mentioned when we were prepping for this. Did you notice the glaring mistake with the brothers in their accents?
No.
Ollie, they're brothers from England. Ollie has an English accent. Ben's is Australian.
Well, there's that.
Because he is an Australian actor.
I didn't even really pick up on that.
But somehow he's got an Australian accent.
Well, he must have gone to boarding school in Australia.
Whoever's behind that just close enough. They both sound not American. It works.
I love the fact that they actually put in the auto rotate maneuver when the engines cut out, because that actually is indeed a real maneuver that helicopter pilots do when engines fail. So the fact that they threw that in and made it so that he knew how to do that just further heightened his skill in the movie, which I loved. And I loved the fact that even though he knew what to do, it still wasn't a clean landing.
It could have been, but then I was like,
they hit that pole and they
cart guy. They didn't want to crush him, so they swerved at the last second.
Stupid loaders.
Yep.
And here's the last thing I want to bring up. And this is actually I didn't make this one of my top 3 because I want to see how you guys feel about this. I kind of have a little bit of an opinion on Ray. And it is a character flaw. He has a lot of strengths, but I feel like there is one big flaw to his character in this movie. And I feel like, and I understand where it's coming from. He is incredibly selfish. And here's my reasoning behind that. He is in a rescue chopper in wherever he is outside of San Francisco before the earthquakes hit, before Emma is trapped on the roof. There is a mass destruction going on. Is it not incredibly selfish when they could use all the equipment that they could use to rescue people? He's hogging this chopper for himself to save his family.
Yeah.
It's a little selfish to me.
It is. I mean,
granted, I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
I have access.
Most
have access
people
to do
would.
it. But when you look at the grand scale of everything, like he is an incredibly skilled rescue worker who has equipment on him, who could be helping people. He's using it instead of to help others to save his own family. It's a little bit of a selfish move.
Especially whenever they show at the beginning, it's not only just a rescue, worker, but like with a military background. This team that he does rescue work with was also a rescue team in Afghanistan together, and they did these things. So with that military background, you should have that greater good versus your own thing ingrained in you also.
Yeah.
And if you look at it from the other side of things, had he actually not gone, his entire family would have died.
Yes.
Because she would have died on the building, and Blake would have drowned.
Yep.
So I get it. I would have done the same thing if I was in that situation. But it is a little bit of a character flaw that for somebody who is so highly trained as much as he is, that his first instinct was to be selfish.
Well, and we've talked about on other podcasts that when you're in a rescue, service-oriented, saving lives job, you have to make difficult choices.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is the choice he made.
Here's a thought that I just had, which now this is just kind of going off of tangents of what ifs. But again, also, if he wouldn't have gone to save his family, would Blake have drowned? Because they probably wouldn't have even been in that building. They probably would have gone where everybody else was going to, where military choppers were saving people.
That's true.
Because the reason they went to the reason they went to that building was because it was Ben was let's go where everybody else is going. She was like, no, my dad said he's coming, so we got to go somewhere else for him.
Yep.
Well, but also at the same time, they would have been closer to the water and probably would have been wiped out by the tsunami.
Yeah.
She probably still would have drowned. Just in a completely different way. Because when you look at it, you think about it, with the exception of his wife, Blake, Ben, and Ollie, and those couple people that he directed to get up against the stadium, who else did he save? He didn't really save anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
No.
So for a rescue worker to not rescue anyone other than his family, it's kind of selfish. And I apologize for any feedback you get on this after this episode releases.
It was Ben's fault. I didn't say it. No.
It was my opinion. It wasn't
Ben
yours.
brought it in.
Yeah.
Ben brought it to the table.
You can send me personal feedback at idon'tcare@gmail.com.
You know, we still have one number one left,
Yeah.
I think. We need to know what Pake thinks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Crap. I cut in front of it.
It's all good. All good.
I will never be a guest again. I'm not invited back.
You will definitely be back. Don't you worry.
What was your number one, Pake?
Yes, which we've covered pretty much all of mine anyway, so that's why I wasn't too worried about it. Because yeah, a lot of mine was Ray and Emma and their relationship. And I think we've really covered pretty much all of that except for like little notes where I was like, Carla Gugino, good to see her. Since she's been narrating Bly Manor for me for the past 2 months, it's nice to see her again in something. And then, there goes Susan, probably for the best.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the only other note that I thought was really cool is, the moment of Ray being able to save Blake. I think if Ray and Emma had not had that conversation we've mentioned a few times in that helicopter, he might not have been able to muster up the strength to do that. And it kind of was a personal redemption for him because it echoed what had happened to Mallory before. But because he had been able to have that conversation with Emma, I think it pushed him a little further to try just, a little harder.
In her reaction,
really,
because she just looked at him, like realizing that she was gone, and he looked at her, she looked at him, and then he just like, he starts up again, doing CPR.
Yeah. But yeah, that's really all I had on that. But I do have a couple of extra, just random character notes. But does anybody else have any extra notes as well?
No, I said mine cut and paste, so I apologize.
I just had Daniel the Creep, and I feel like we have talked a lot about him already. So I'm totally down.
Yeah, most of mine are just like these little like quips because I was like, yeah, fuck Daniel. You one shoe rat bastard.
I'm so glad you just used the F word because I was curious
we
to
curse
go first on
often
this
here on
podcast.
this podcast. We are explicit.
Okay, good. I listened to the podcast, but yet I still couldn't remember whether or not I've heard swears or not.
Oh, then there's one coming up that's...
Oh yeah, good. It's probably the same one I have with a line of dialogue that's one of my favorites from the movie.
Okay, so we do have one that's the same. No, because it's PG-13, so they were allowed one. Yes. So yeah, I know exactly what line you're talking about because it's in mine.
And that was a good use of it.
So yeah, let me see what other notes if I have anything. We did talk about Hayes and his stuff. I did want to point out the fact that he decided, even though he's still grieving the loss of his friend and co-worker and partner in the lab, that he still decides to talk to the reporters, and he uses that as kind of like in honor of him. It's like, no, because he died for this cause and this is what we found because of this, so the world needs to know, and he deserves to have me speak about it.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool. And then I think that's about it. We did talk about Ollie a little bit, Rickon Stark from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Which... yeah, and I just have here quite the cheeky lad, eh?
Very much. He's the little wingman trying to get the number for his brother. He did succeed. Just saying.
Not afraid to say or do anything.
Nope. Not at all.
He played that annoying little brother very well,
best.
But
I don't think he played annoying at all.
He was annoying to Ben, is what I mean.
Yeah.
As far as annoying little brother, but not in an obnoxious way. I was like, oh, this freaking annoying kid, but like knew how to push Ben's buttons just the right way. I thought it was fun. Yeah, no.
I felt like he was just the right amount of precocious that I was totally down.
So yeah, I think we're good there. So then, Daphne, what do you have for your extra production notes and stuff?
So here are some of my extra notes. So Brad Peyton has worked with Dwayne Johnson, or DJ as Ben has called him, several other times, including Rampage and Journey to Mysterious Island. He also created the short-lived Netflix series Daybreak, which I loved, and am sad it's not coming back for a season 2, because it was equally humorous and sad and funny and all over the place, and I loved it. So I also found out that Thomas Jordan, who's a USC professor and director of the Southern California Earthquake Center, fact-checked the script. Both the director, Brad Peyton, and Dwayne Johnson have stated that the science portrayed is accurate. Jordan was quoted as saying, "I gave them free advice, some of which they took, but much of which they didn't. Magnitude 9s are too big for the San Andreas fault, and it can't produce a big tsunami," which I thought was interesting.
I like the fact that they fact-checked the science.
Well, yeah, trying. Brad Peyton actually brought him in to do that, so they made an attempt. The film has over 1,300 visual effects, and those were provided by Hydraulics, Cinesite, and Image Engine. The cast did a lot of their own stunts because the director wanted to see their faces and wanted to be realistic. A large amount, as we talked about, a large amount of the film was shot in and around Brisbane, Australia. At the time of the filming, the city had not experienced a notable or a noticeable earthquake in its history. And this is a little bit of trivia. The building that they use for Riddick's headquarters, where Blake meets Ben and Ollie, is the Bank of America building on California Street. The same building was used in the disaster classic, The Towering Inferno, which we will cover on a later episode of this podcast. It's an oldie. It's a classic, but it's really good. And let's see, the San Andreas Fault, which is a national natural landmark, is the name of the tectonic fault line that runs through most of California. Seismologists have been predicting for years that California is due for a massive earthquake caused by this particular fault. And I have just two more things. Alexandra Daddario is 14 years younger than Dwayne Johnson, who plays her father, and 15 years younger than Carla Gugino, who plays her mother. So, there's that. And regarding a sequel, it was announced in February of 2016 that there is a sequel in development, but nothing has really happened. Brad Peyton was announced as the director, but he's since been replaced by James McTeague, whose claim to fame is V for Vendetta. And that's pretty much all I have for production
I wonder
notes.
where the sequel would take place.
Yeah, you can't really do like the San Andreas Fault. Gets
But
worse.
there is a fault line that runs
No.
through New York City.
Oh, so they might have to take it there.
No, I'm not sure. Reportedly, though, it's the Ring of Fire that was at least suggested. And the Ring of Fire is...
It's like Pacific Islands and stuff.
It's a
right?
major area. Yes, it's a major area in the basin of the Pacific Ocean where many earthquakes and volcanic eruptions occur. In a large 40,000 kilometer horseshoe shape, it's associated with nearly continuous series of oceanic trenches, volcanic arcs, and volcanic belts and plate movements. That is all from our friends at
Interesting.
Wikipedia.
All right.
And I have to say, I've kind of been withholding this comment. Alexandra Daddario has some of the most beautiful eyes I have ever seen on a person.
Yeah, they literally sparkle. I don't know how that works.
And now the gushing starts.
Her eyes make her stunning, and it's just so funny that when you look at the traits of Carla Gugino and Dwayne Johnson, they would never produce a daughter with those eyes.
Yeah.
They would never produce a daughter with those eyes. No, it's not.
It's not genetically possible.
But I don't care. Those eyes can glare at me all day.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
Nah, I love it.
That's great.
All right. Another fun thing we like to do is cover some of our favorite quotes from the movie. So, again, since you're our guest, I like starting with you. So, Ben, what do you got for
I'm
quotes?
stealing yours, Pake.
Yeah, you probably are.
It is my favorite quote in the entire movie, but when they are on that chopper and she calls Daniel and she literally just says, "You left my daughter alone? If you're not dead already, I'm going to fucking kill you." It is
Yes.
yes. One of my absolute favorite
favorites
lines
as well.
in the entire movie. And just him looking at her being like, "Atta girl." Like that's,
Yep.
I love that
Yeah.
line so much. That's one of my favorite lines from the movie.
Yeah, that is a favorite. I think I noted it was in my notes for earlier, and I just didn't use it. So
Do we go in rotation
you
or do
brought
I
it up.
name one or two?
Go ahead and go through all of yours. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have two other ones that I really like, and then I'll leave it over to you guys. When they're about to jump out of the plane, two of my favorite lines come from that scene. We see them sitting on the edge of the plane, and she says, he's like, "Are you ready?" And she's like, "Do I sound ready?" He's like, "Yep." And then they jump out of the plane. And then when they land, and he says to her, "It's been a while since I've got you to second base."
Yeah.
I thought that was like a nice little line to her, especially when you see like the smile on her face afterwards.
Yeah. That was another one of mine. So now I have one left. No, that's fine. I don't mind. It's been covered, and that's good.
But yeah, those were the three that I chose as some of my favorite lines of dialogue from the
nice. They're great lines. Daphne, what do you have?
All right. So one thing I want to point out is the final lines for both Susan and her asshole brother Daniel. The final words that they each spoke were the words, "Get out of my way." Susan said it before she walked out the door to nowhere. And then Daniel said it when he ripped the guy out of his place in line to take his spot before the Great Dust Bowl.
They got what they deserved.
Mm-hmm.
They did. I just found it really humorous that they both said
that's fun.
The same thing.
Comeuppance concluded.
Yes. And we do love a good comeuppance on the Run for Your Lives podcast.
So you would say Daniel is the Nedry of this movie?
Yes.
Because speaking of comeupances, that's one of Daphne's favorite things is finding the Nedry of the movie since we've covered Jurassic Park.
Yes. Daniel is the Nedry of this film. For sure. My second quote is our good little buddy Ollie. After Blake puts her number in the San Francisco guidebook, he says, he just looks and she walks away and says, "I can't wait to be 20. Not 19, not
It's very
18,
strangely specific.
Not 25, 20.
He has another one of my favorite lines of the movie too, but I'll save it and see if somebody else says it first.
All right. Well, my last one is, and I already touched on it a little bit, is Lawrence, when he wants to get the message out, he runs up to the media department and he walks in very nonchalantly and says, "Okay, who wants an A in independent study? I'm starting a new class. How to Save Lives by Hacking Media Outlets." And then this guy, credited only as Stoner, nothing else, Stoner, says, "Hell yeah, man, I'm in." And Lawrence says, "Sweet, bro, get your laptop, let's go." And so that is my third and final quote. But I did love that. I just thought it was great.
Awesome. Well, my quote that I have now.
Sorry.
No. I just repeat those ones now.
That's fine. It's fine if you did.
But yeah, going back to Ollie. So maybe I stole your other Ollie one you were just talking about. Because mentioning about, his cheekiness is in that main scene where I'm talking about that is where he leans in, after being told, like, just don't say anything else. He's like, okay. And then just leans straight into Blake. "Do you mind if I get your phone number for him?"
That's not even the line I'm thinking of.
I think I know what one you're thinking of.
The scene where Blake and Ben finally share a moment together. And when they separate and Ollie's just standing there and he's like, "Mom's going to love her."
Love her.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one, too.
Yeah,
I almost put that
me
one
too.
down. Should have.
Yeah, I loved it. Oh, my gosh. He had some great lines. I mean,
Ollie was the best.
Given the number of lines we're putting in our quote spotlight today, he had a lot of the lines that stuck out the most.
Ollie was the best.
It's fun. All right, I think we just get to our rankings now. And again, usually it's like, on a 1 to 10 scale, but
here we go.
For the most part,
a little nervous.
Like I've mentioned it so many times, it's like whose line? Like, the rankings are made up. The scores don't really matter. Because if you go back and look at what we've ranked other movies,
none of it makes sense.
Nothing lines up. But
we enjoy it.
It's whatever I'm feeling in the moment.
Yes.
But Ben, if you had to rank this movie, where do you think you'd put it?
While the movie has its flaws, I think there are more strengths than weaknesses in this movie. For that reason, it's getting ranked pretty high. It's not a perfect 10. It's very far from a perfect 10. I'm going to say, out of 10, I'm going to give this a 7.8. 7.8 boats through buildings.
Boats through
All
buildings.
right.
I like boats through buildings.
I was gonna say 7.8 drowning daughters, but I felt that inappropriate.
That, yeah,
It's
that's
a
A little dark. So I went
darker.
with 7.8 boats through buildings.
all right.
Mhm.
Apologies if that offended anybody.
I don't think it will. I think
we're
that
good.
will be okay. I'm just happy.
We know our
Yes.
listener base, the kind of people who send in the feedback most is like, yeah, sure, we're fine.
I'm just glad I didn't have to go first this week.
Yeah,
Oh,
but you get to go
great.
second.
Yes.
So you still have to go
I
before me.
know. I know. I love this movie for so many reasons that I've already mentioned. It's hard for me to rank it because it's one of those movies that I'll throw in when I need something in the background, which is why I've seen it so many times. It's just easy to leave and come back and know what's going on. So, at the end of the day, I'm going to give it an 8.
All right. It's close to mine.
All right. Well, I'm a good bit little lower, but
I knew
it's
that
not-
was
I
coming.
don't hate it. I know. I don't hate it. And you've actually made me appreciate it a lot more, which I figured was going to happen once I heard you talk about it, especially Ben. So, yeah, my initial ranking is a 7, but I think it could go up to a 0.1 or 0.2
Oh my
above that
goodness.
after talking
I
to you
take
guys.
it. That's a decent ranking.
I appreciate it more.
That's decent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a passing grade.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's worth watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, by any means, I don't hate this movie. I don't think it's terrible.
It's not a
But-
thanks killing.
No.
Oh man, that movie will go down in infamy. I don't
It
know what
will.
for. It'll just go down in infamy for something.
Yes,
Yes.
it will.
All right. Now it's time to get into a little bit of feedback this week. We do have one call from our good friend Steve Brown, as always, and we always appreciate it. So, what does Steve have to say this week?
Well, let's see what he has to say, or rather, let's hear what he has to say.
Thus proving why you should wear your seatbelt. I mean, she was wearing her seatbelt. That's why she's alive. There's no other way, right? Hey, Daphne and Pake and Steve. I just started watching San Andreas, and this opening shot with this girl in the car. Okay, just another popcorn movie. Don't think about it too much. Okay, that was tense, man. Wasn't he just flying to, like, a maintenance thing? Does he have enough fuel to get to San Francisco from Los Angeles? Right? That's where she's at, isn't she? Hey, movie, you really don't have to go out of your way to show us that this guy Daniel is a jerk. I mean, he left a girl in a car by herself in a parking garage, didn't even try to help her. You don't need to show us anymore that he's a jerk. Well, now she doesn't have to kill him. So, he stole a fire department helicopter, crashed it. Then they stole a stolen truck and gave it away. And for some reason, the couple got out of it while they were in the city. And then they stole a plane and crashed it. Or, yeah, they stole a plane and crashed it. And now they've stolen a boat and wrecked it, but it's still running. And now these two are going to make out because I don't know where Ollie went. Oh, he's right there. Mom is going to love this. And now these two are making out. Go save your daughter! I cannot hold my breath for this long. I would be dead. Man, that boat can really take a licking. You know, I'm glad everybody's okay. But isn't the Los Angeles Fire Department kind of looking for him? Don't you think? I talk to you later.
Yeah, that's fun. I didn't even think about that. Like, he's like, we sent him to go check out this one thing. Where he never showed up. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Commentary by Steve Brown.
Yes.
Yes.
Steve, you always bring up some interesting points, and I think if you listen to our podcast, we may have answered some of those questions for you.
And
Yes.
I can say, in regards to Steve's question, can a helicopter even fly that far? San Diego to Los Angeles or reciprocal is about 140 miles. And a helicopter can go for about 250 on a tank of gas.
Nice.
Tank of fuel. I actually looked that up while I was watching the movie.
You're like, I got to make sure this works out.
Because I wanted to check that too.
Yeah. Nice.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Steve, so much for sending in feedback. We
Yeah.
always appreciate hearing what you have to say and
Definitely.
sharing your unique view with us every week.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now we'll get into our little shout outs here, talk about where you can find us in the podcast universe and elsewhere, what's going on. Now, it's funny because a lot of the stuff I'm throwing out this week, it's good that we have Ben here because a lot of it has to do with him. So it works. Because first, Strange Indeed, because they will be picking up on The Stand, CBS All Access The Stand. And I'm not going to be on that podcast regularly every week like usual because Ben will be for this show.
Just keeping your seat warm.
Yeah. I will be popping in for a couple of episodes throughout the season. So that'll be fun. I'm excited to do that. And him and Rima have already covered the miniseries, kind of a recap of the original 1994 miniseries. So that episode is up if you want to listen to that. And then they should be recording on episode 1 pretty soon.
Yep. Next week.
Yes. And then on Panels to Pixels with Steve that you just heard there. Me, Steve, and Ben sat down recently, so hopefully the episode will be up pretty soon. And we had a quick little roundtable talk about my favorite movie in the whole world. And Ben's a huge fan, too, of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So we had a good nerd fest, quote fest of fun. That was good.
And which one of you is the bigger fan of that movie?
I'm going to give it to Pake. I adore that movie. It's close.
Yeah.
I adore that movie, but I think Pake is probably got a little bit of the edge when it comes to being a bigger fan.
Yeah, that movie just I love it so much.
I don't know if you're planning on bringing this one up too, but another podcast I was just on is the year end of the Walking Dead cast.
Yeah,
with Jason and Lucy talking about our top 5. We said top 5. It didn't stay to top 5. Favorite directors from film, which was a lot of fun.
Yes, that was a great episode, and yep,
I'm everywhere these next couple weeks.
Uh-huh.
Ben's really busy in the podcast universe.
Yeah, I'm very busy in the universe.
Yeah. So what else? What else you got going on, Ben?
Well, my Spotlight podcast, it has wrapped its 6th season, getting ready to go into its 7th, starting in January of 2021. I'm really looking forward to that. I've got a bunch of guests that I'm currently talking to. Clancy Brown, Richard Karn, James fucking Brolin. Don't know how the hell that's happening.
That's going to be cool.
Seems to be happening. Lauren, oh God, now I can't remember her name. She was the love interest in Dumb and Dumber. Lauren, I forget. Anyway, hope she doesn't hear this because she'll really want to be on the podcast after
that.
Of course.
I, of course, am doing the We Have to Go Back Lost Revisited podcast every week with our friend Kristen. That drops every weekend as well. Right now, we're currently in the 4th season. But the biggest thing is my movie roundtable podcast is finally launching. Almost felt like I needed to go into a rock impression right there. Finally. No. No, it's my film roundtable podcast, Wilhelm, is finally launching in January. I'm really excited about that. I have easily 3 years worth of shows ready to go to go weekly, but I'm really looking forward to that. You guys will both be guests on that, I'm sure.
Looking forward to it.
So I really want to push the social media for them to get some followers in there and get some listeners before we launch. Facebook.com/Wilhelm, at the Wilhelm Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. And if you have an idea for maybe a franchise you want to hear us talk about, an actor that you love, a movie that you love that you want to hear us talk about, we're always taking recommendations. You can email me at thewilhelmpodcast@gmail.com. For everything else, the Lost Podcast, the Spotlight, easiest way to find all the information, including Wilhelm as well, is go to thenextlevelnetwork.com and just click on the show that you want to get the information on. And all the information is there, from where to subscribe to how to contact us.
Awesome. Lots of good stuff going on with Ben. He is quite the professional podcaster.
I need to catch my breath.
So between all of that, and you've been guesting on every podcast in every network that we know.
I know.
Staying busy.
It's no wonder it took me 2 years to get Wilhelm finally going.
Hey, it's awesome.
It takes time to launch a podcast.
Apparently, yeah, because in the time that I've been developing Wilhelm, you two have launched this and are successfully into it. Mark has successfully gotten into adrenaline cinema.
Mm. 2
other friends are launching 2 other movie related podcasts.
Yep.
It's I'm just a slacker. But
I wouldn't think that. I don't think that
with
at all.
all the other podcasts and developing a convention, it just took me a little longer than I expected to get this podcast off the ground. But I'm happy it's finally going.
Yeah.
Starting mid to late January, episodes are going to start rolling out. So I'm really excited.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast.
Awesome. Yes, definitely.
All right. And then, Daphne, why don't you go ahead and fill everybody else in on what is going on next on this podcast? What's up next for Run for Your Lives?
Ooh, well, so next week we are going to release our 3rd and final holiday special on Christmas Eve. So it's going to be a day earlier than usual because Friday is Christmas. So Pake and I are going to be digging in to Krampus. It is the 2015 American Christmas comedy horror film directed by Michael Dougherty, and it was released on December 2nd, 2015. And I can tell you that it is a really fun movie, and you'll have to listen to hear what we think about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I've never seen it.
You have not seen Krampus. Ooh, you gotta...
I have not seen Krampus, but I like Adam Scott, and I know Adam Scott is in it.
Yes.
Giving you homework right here on the air. Everybody can hear it. Watch it. Give us some feedback. Tell us what you thought.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
you know what? I will
Do that.
I will
Yeah.
watch it and leave you feedback for that.
Sweet.
Excellent. It was a lot of fun to watch. I've only seen it twice now, so it was fun.
Find the time to do that sometime in between my 700 other.
And I'm giving you more work to do.
No, I will do it.
Sweet. And anybody else out there, if you want to join Ben in watching the movie and sending us feedback for it, you can do that through our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at RFYL Podcast, Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. And then if you're enjoying the show and want to give us a little bit of extra love, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Pandora, Stitcher. We're everywhere that you can find a podcast. We're probably there. And if you go to Apple Podcasts, give us a review, give us 5 stars. Tell us how much you're enjoying it. Or maybe not, but be nice. We're fragile. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, share with your friends. Tell people to come and listen. If you want to send them to any of our social media or podcast player links, the easiest way to do that, just go to our website at runforyourlivespodcast.com, and all of the links and stuff will be there. So, yeah.
Well, we would like to thank Ben for being a guest on this episode of Run For Your Lives. It's been a lot of fun breaking down this movie, and we look forward to having you on again sometime in the not-too-distant future.
Oh, does that mean we're doing Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie?
Oh, gosh.
In the not-too-distant future?
No, probably
Next
not.
Sunday, AD. There was a guy named Joel.
Oh, yes.
Not too different
Or
from
Mike.
you and me. Yeah, no.
Not too different from you and me.
Yeah, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
I think he worked at Gizmonic Institute.
It's just
another face in a red jumpsuit. I'll stop.
Peg does have to go to work, so.
Yeah. No, and I thank you guys for inviting me on. It was a lot of fun, and I look forward to the next time I get to join you.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back. Plenty. Give you more work to do because you definitely need it.
More homework.
And with that, everyone, we have reached the end of our episode. Thank you so much for listening. I am Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, swim, or drive a boat into an oncoming tsunami, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.